Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into a real giant in India's economy, the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. You probably know it as NABARD.
Yeah, it's a pivotal institution.
Absolutely. And our aim here is simple. We want you to walk away with a really clear understanding of how NABARD started, what it actually does, because it does a lot, and, well, why it's so important for India.
Right. Think of this as your crash course. And for this, we're mainly drawing from a key document, Understanding NABARD in India.pdf. It's a deep institutional analysis.
Great. So that's our guide. Let's dive in. Where does the story start? It seems the government knew pretty early on they needed something specific for rural finance.
That's right. Back in the early planning days, there was this recognition that, the existing setup wasn't really built for the countryside, especially for agriculture.
So the standard banks weren't cutting it.
Not quite. So the Reserve Bank of India, the RBI, stepped in. They set up a committee, the Committee to Review the Arrangements for Institutional Credit for Agriculture and Rural Development.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, let's just call it CRAFACARD. That was March 1979, chaired by Shri B. Savaraman.
Okay, CRAFACARD. So they took a look around. What did they report back? What was the big problem?
Well, their interim report came out pretty quickly, November 79, and they really hit the nail on the head. They said rural credit needed, and I'm quoting here, undivided attention, forceful direction, and pointed focus.
Undivided attention. So basically, it couldn't just be a side job for existing banks.
Exactly. That's the core idea. They realized you couldn't just tweak things. You needed a dedicated body, something laser focused on rural India's unique challenges and opportunities, too.
It wasn't just about pumping in more money then. It was a whole new approach.
Precisely. It required a shift in thinking.
And that led CRAFACARD to recommend
What?
a new institution.
Spot on. They pushed for creating a unique development financial institution, something built from the ground up specifically for rural growth.
A fundamental change, really.
Absolutely. It was a call to rethink how India financed its farms and villages.
Okay, so CRAFACARD makes this big recommendation. How did that turn into actual law?
Well, following that strong recommendation, things moved quite fast. The government enacted the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development Act in 1981.
The NABARD Act, 1981.
That's the one, Act 61 of 1981. It got the president's assent December 30th, 1981. That act is the legal backbone for NABARD.
So the law's in place at the end of 81. When did NABARD actually open its doors?
It formally started operations on July 12th, 1982.
Okay, July 82. And getting it running involves some reshuffling, right?
Oh, definitely. It was a significant reorganization. Basically, the RBI's agricultural credit functions, they were transferred to NABARD.
I see.
And also the refinancing work previously done by the Agricultural Refinance and Development Corporation, the ARDC, that moved over to.
So real consolidation, bringing all the key rural finance pieces together under NABARD.
Exactly. It was about creating that single point of focus CRAFACARD talked about.
And what became of the ARDC then?
It was dissolved. Its functions were absorbed into NABARD. Made sense, really. Keep it streamlined.
And the official inauguration, that was a pretty big deal.
It was, yeah. The Prime Minister at the time, Asana Indira Gandhi, formally dedicated NABARD to the nation on November 5th, 1982.
So that really underlined its national importance from day one.
Absolutely. Big expectations rested on it.
All right, NABARD's up and running. Let's shift gears a bit. Who actually owns this institution and what's its precise job description? Its mandate.
Okay, ownership. NABARD started with an initial capital of R-centered crore, but there's been a key change.
Oh, what was that?
The NABARD Amendment Act of 2017, that led to the RBI transferring its shareholding, which was about R-third 20 crore entirely, to the central government.
So the RBI is no longer a shareholder.
Correct. As of that amendment, NABARD is now 100% owned by the government of India.
Which really emphasizes its role as a public policy tool for rural development, I suppose.
Exactly. It aligns it directly with government objectives.
And its financial muscle has grown quite a bit since the early days.
Massively. The authorized capital can now potentially go up to Rs 30,000 crore, and as of March 31st, 2024, the actual paid-up capital was Rs 17,080 crore.
That's serious capital. And it's not just a bank, right?
Yeah.
It's called India's Apex Development Financial Institution.
That's the key distinction. It is India's apex DFI. Its core mandate, straight from the 1981 Act, is pretty broad. It's about providing and regulating credit in other facilities for the promotion and development of agriculture, small-scale industries, cottage and village industries, handicrafts and other rural crafts, and other allied economic activities in rural areas
Right.
with a view to promoting integrated rural development. So it's very comprehensive.
Integrated rural development, and agriculture here means more than just crops.
Oh, much more. It covers horticulture, animal husbandry, forestry, dairy, poultry, fish farming, pisciculture, the whole gamut.
A whole rural ecosystem, really.
Pretty much. And rural development is defined broadly, too. It includes production, cottage industries, handicrafts, handlooms, all those things vital to the rural economy.
And I noticed the terminology has evolved. Something about small-scale industries.
Good catch. Yes, the 2017 amendment updated small-scale industries to the current classification. Micro-enterprises, small enterprises, and medium enterprises, MSMEs.
So, keeping pace with how we categorize businesses now.
Exactly. Shows it's adapting. Administratively, NABARD falls under the Department of Financial Services within the Ministry of Finance.
Okay, clear. So we know its roots, its ownership. What about its guiding philosophy? What's its vision and mission?
Right, the big picture. NABARD's vision is quite powerful. Development bank of the nation for fostering rural prosperity.
Fostering rural prosperity, not just financing it.
Precisely. It's about overall well-being, economic vitality. It's aspirational.
And the mission. How do they plan to achieve that prosperity?
The mission statement elaborates: promote sustainable and equitable agriculture and rural development through participative financial and non-financial interventions, innovations, technology, and institutional development for securing prosperity.
Lots to unpack there. Financial and non-financial interventions.
Key point. It's not just loans. It's also about building capacity, fostering innovation, strengthening institutions, a holistic approach.
Creating that supportive environment for growth. And this vision and mission translate into specific objectives.
Absolutely. Several key ones, like increasing the overall credit flow to agriculture and the rural sector.
More money available.
Yes, and specifically facilitating credit for agriculture and all those allied activities we mentioned. Also, promoting rural development through innovative financial products. They're meant to find solutions.
Proactive, not just reactive.
That's the idea. Another big one. Supporting rural infrastructure. Think irrigation, roads, markets, the basics needed for growth.
Foundational stuff.
And promoting rural industries, too. MSMEs, cottage industries, handicrafts. Recognizing their economic role.
And they don't just support businesses, but the local banks, too.
Crucial point. Strengthening those rural financial institutions, the cooperative banks, the regional rural banks, or RRBs, is a major objective.
Building the delivery channels.
Exactly. Plus, there's a strong focus now on encouraging sustainable agriculture and, importantly, climate resilience.
That's becoming central everywhere.
It has to be. Ultimately, it's all geared towards improving the quality of life for rural people through both money and development support and pushing for greater financial inclusion, making sure everyone has access.
A really broad, transformative agenda for rural India. Okay, let's get practical. How does NABARD actually do all this? What are its core functions day to day?
Broadly, you can think of their work falling into three main buckets: financial, developmental, and supervisory.
Financial, developmental, supervisory.
Okay. And these three aren't separate silos. They're really interconnected. They work together.
Makes sense. Let's start with the financial side. Refinancing seems like a really big part of their operation.
It's huge, absolutely central. NABARD acts as the apex refinancing agency. Basically, it provides funds to the institution's banks, cooperatives that lend directly for agriculture and rural development.
So like a wholesaler of credit for the rural sector.
That's a good way to put it. The main goal is to boost the resources of those frontline lenders, making more credit available at the grassroots level.
And this refinancing comes in different flavors. Short-term, long-term.
Correct. There's short-term ST refinance, usually repayable within 12 months. And then there's long-term LT refinance for investments that take longer to pay off.
Let's tackle short-term first. Who gets this ST refinance?
Primarily, it goes to cooperative banks, that's state cooperative banks, STCBs, and district central cooperative banks, DCCBs, and also the regional rural banks, RRBs.
The traditional rural lenders.
Right. Though recently, small finance banks, SFBs, also became eligible, and commercial banks can get ST refinance, but specifically for lending to the weavers sector.
Okay. And what kind of activities does this ST money support?
The main one is ST for Seasonal Agricultural Operations, SAO. That's your classic crop loan support, often at concessional interest rates thanks to specific funds.
Helping farmers through the growing season.
Exactly. Then there's ST for others, things like working capital for allied activities, dairy, poultry, etc., MSMEs, rural marketing, buying inputs, and finally, ST specifically for weavers, working capital and marketing funds for them.
Sounds like a lot of money flowing through this channel.
It really is. In fiscal year 2024, total ST refinance hit about 1.8 lakh crore. That's significant.
Wow. Any particular type of institution getting the lion's share?
Yes, the state cooperative banks took the biggest chunk, around 73.3% in FY24. And geographically, the southern states tend to receive the largest share. Could be stronger co-ops there or higher demand.
Interesting regional variation. Okay, what about long-term LT refinance? What's the goal there?
LT refinance is all about investment credit. It's meant to help build capital assets in rural areas, things that generate income over a longer period. So the repayment terms are longer, maybe 18 months, up to even 15 or 25 years sometimes.
Matching the lifespan of the investment makes sense. What are the specific objectives?
Well, things like capital formation in agriculture and related sectors, promoting government and NABARD priority areas, financing self-help groups, SHGs, and joint liability groups, JLGs.
Supporting groups, not just individuals.
Yes. Also supporting the non-farm sector, MSMEs, rural housing, buying vehicles for rural businesses, even funding climate-related projects. And it's used to refinance loans under government subsidy schemes that NABARD handles.
A very broad range. Who can tap into these LT funds?
It's a diverse group. State cooperative agriculture and rural development banks, SCARDBs, RRBs, STCBs, DCCBs, commercial banks, state-level finance companies, even scheduled primary urban co-op banks and small finance banks.
So a wider net than ST.
Yeah.
And the activities supported are equally varied.
Absolutely. Farm sector stuff like land development, irrigation, dairy, poultry, fisheries, buying machinery, even financing farmer-producer organizations, FPOs, up to a point.
And beyond the farm.
Yes. Things like rural MSMEs, setting up agri-clinics, supporting rural startups, rural housing, commercial vehicles, agro-processing units, marketing infrastructure, renewable energy, social infrastructure. It's extensive.
Is there a specific fund for this LT lending?
Yes, a key one is the Long-Term Rural Credit Fund, LTRCF. It gets its money from commercial banks that fall short on their priority sector lending targets. This fund provides concessional LT refinance to co-ops and RRBs for agriculture investments.
And the scale of LT refinance is also substantial.
Very much so. Disbursements crossed 1 lakh crore in FY 2023, showing a definite increase and highlighting the demand for investment capital in rural India.
Now, there was something called medium-term conversion or rescheduling. What's that about?
Yes, this is really important. It's a safety net for farmers hit by natural disasters.
How does it work?
NABARD gives MT credit limits to the STCBs and RRBs. This allows them to convert existing short-term crop loans, the SAO loans, into medium-term loans if farmers suffer significant crop damage, usually 33% loss or more because of floods, droughts, things like that.
So it gives farmers breathing room when disaster strikes.
Exactly. And NABARD usually picks up a big part of the tab for this conversion, maybe 60–70%. Similar help is available for artisans or small industries hit by calamities, too.
A crucial cushion. Okay, so refinancing is clearly a massive lever for NABARD, but they also lend directly, don't they?
Yes, they do. While refinancing is the main channel, NABARD also engages in direct lending. This is usually more targeted, aimed at filling specific gaps where refinancing might not be the best fit.
And a lot of this direct lending goes to state governments.
That's right. A major chunk supports state governments and related bodies. This is often done through various dedicated funds focused on building rural infrastructure.
Like the RIDF. That's quite well known.
Exactly. The Rural Infrastructure Development Fund, RIDF, is probably the most famous, but there are others too for long-term irrigation, LTIF, micro-irrigation, LEIF, warehousing, WIFF, food processing, FPF, dairy, DIDF, fisheries, FIDF.
Addressing key infrastructure bottlenecks.
Absolutely. And beyond those specific funds, NABARD also lends directly to state governments to help them inject capital into their cooperative banks and RRBs, strengthening them.
And then there's NIDA NABARD Infrastructure Development Assistance. How is that different?
NEDA is interesting. It's a separate lending window started around 2010-11 that operates outside the RIDF structure. It lends directly not just to state governments, but also state-owned corporations and entities for rural infra projects.
What makes NIDA stand out?
Flexibility is key. It offers more customized terms, potentially longer repayment periods, up to 25 years, moratoriums. Interest rates may be linked to market benchmarks. It's funded projects from drinking water and schools to roads and renewable energy.
Sounds quite versatile, and it's made a significant impact.
Oh, yes. Cumulative sanctions under NATO were around 1.05 lakh crore by March 2025. That's a lot of infrastructure.
NABARD also lends directly for specific things like warehouses.
Yes, through the Warehouse Infrastructure Fund, WIF, they provide direct loans to various players, government agencies, co-ops, FPOs to build storage capacity. Very important for reducing post-harvest losses.
And direct lending isn't just for government bodies. Co-ops and FPOs can get direct loans too.
Correct. For instance, there's a short-term multi-purpose credit product, STMPCP, for well-run cooperative banks to help them diversify their lending, maybe financing local sugar factories or other ventures.
Now, one really unique direct lending program seems to be the Umbrella Program for Natural Resource Management, UPNRM. Tell us about that.
UPNRM is special. It directly links sustainable natural resource management like watershed projects or forestry with improving rural livelihoods, especially for the poor. It's an Indo-German collaboration.
And how does it work? What's the Credit Plus approach?
Right, Credit Plus. It combines loans with modest grants. The loan part ensures financial discipline, while the grant covers things like capacity building, technical support, project management. The place aspect's crucial for success.
So it's not just throwing money at the problem.
Exactly. It funds a range of partners, NGOs, co-ops, FPOs, even companies for activities like soil conservation, sustainable farming, renewable energy. The grants help build the skills and systems needed. It's reached over 300,000 rural folks.
A very holistic model. Now, just to be clear, NABARD doesn't usually give loans straight to individual farmers for regular farming, right?
That's a key clarification, yes. Generally, no. Individual farmers access NABARD-supported funds indirectly. NABARD provides refinance to the banks and co-ops, and they lend to the farmers. Direct lending is more for states, institutions, or specific projects like UPNRM.
Got it. Okay, so beyond the huge financial role, NABARD also has this critical developmental and promotional function.
Absolutely. This is where they focus on building capacity, fostering inclusion, driving innovation. It's the non-financial side, but deeply linked to their financial work.
Let's start with microfinance and financial inclusion. The self-help group Bank Linkage program is legendary.
It really is. Launched way back in 1992, the SHG BLP is arguably the world's largest microfinance program by reach. It connects millions of women's self-help groups to the formal banking system.
How does it work in practice?
It encourages banks to lend to these SHGs, often without traditional collateral. Millions of groups have savings accounts linked, and a huge number have received loans. There's an emphasis on group quality, the Panchsutras, to ensure they function well.
And they support other group lending models, too.
Yes, they also back joint liability groups, JLGs. These help small farmers or micro-entrepreneurs who don't have land titles or collateral to access credit collectively.
And it's not just about access to credit, but building skills, too.
Exactly. They run micro-enterprise development programs, MEDPs, and livelihood and enterprise development programs, LEDPs. These focus on upgrading the skills of SHG members and helping them start or grow small businesses.
And the Financial Inclusion Fund, FIFE, what does that support?
The FIF is crucial. It funds a wide range of activities. Think large-scale financial literacy training, supporting RRBs and co-ops in their own inclusion efforts, piloting digital innovations like apps to make banking easier in rural areas. They even help SHGs sell their products both offline and online.
A really comprehensive push for inclusion, and they measure progress.
Yes, through their big survey, the All India Rural Financial Inclusion Survey, NAFIS, the latest one for 2021-22, showed positive trends, better incomes, savings, insurance coverage, more formal credit, higher financial literacy. Still work to do, but progress.
Okay, strengthening the institutions themselves, the RRBs and cooperative banks, is also key. What does NABARD do there?
This is core to their mandate. They have the Cooperative Development Fund, CDF, which provides grants and loans to cooperative banks for things like improving infrastructure, training staff, computerizing operations, setting up cells for business diversification.
So direct support for modernization.
Yes. And they support cooperative training institutes, CTIs, and even have an accreditation system for them. For RRBs, they work closely with the government on policy, help with the recapitalization, advise on HR rules, nominate directors, even coordinate recruitment.
And the big push now is computerizing the primary agricultural credit societies, the PAYCS.
Huge initiative. This is about digitizing around 63,000 functional PASIAs across India. It's a massive undertaking, supported by the Ministry of Cooperation, aimed at making them way more efficient and transparent. NABARD is a key player in making this happen, aiming for completion by March 2025.
Another big area is farmer-producer organizations, FPOs. NABARD seems heavily involved.
Very much so. They see FPOs as crucial for empowering small farmers. They have dedicated funds, the Producers Organization Development Fund, PODF, and the Produce Fund specifically to support FPOs.
What kind of support do these funds offer?
It's comprehensive. Help with getting loans, capacity building, market linkages, business planning support, even initial funding to get started. By FY24, they'd help promote over 7,300 FPOs, benefiting about 2.5 million farmers, mostly smallholders.
That's significant scale. And then there's the whole environmental angle, natural resource management, NRM, and climate action.
Increasingly critical. NABARD actually has a long history here with funds like the Watershed Development Fund, WDF, and the Tribal Development Fund, TDF, known for its Wadi agroforestry model.
And now they're involved with international climate funds.
Yes, this is very important. NABARD is the designated national implementing entity, NIE, for big global funds like the Green Climate Fund, GCF, and the Adaptation Fund, TAF, plus India's own NAFCC. This means they channel international money into climate projects on the ground in India.
So they're a key conduit for climate finance.
Absolutely. And they've released their own Climate Strategy 2030, signaling a deeper commitment.
Finally, on the developmental side, they help implement government schemes.
Yes, they often act as the channel for subsidies or financial parts of many go-wise schemes. Things like the Agri-Clinic Scheme, ACABC, Agricultural Marketing Infrastructure, AMI, interest subvention on crop loans, ethanol production support, and historically, schemes for dairy and livestock.
So a real engine for implementing policy on the ground. Okay, that covers developmental. What about the third pillar, supervision?
Right, supervision. Under the Banking Regulation Act, NABARD has the power to supervise cooperative banks and regional rural banks.
So they inspect these banks.
Yes. While the RBI is the ultimate regulator, NABARD conducts regular statutory inspections of STCBs, DCCBs, and RRBs. They also do voluntary inspections of SCAR-DBs and other state-level co-ops.
What are they looking for in these inspections?
They check if the banks are following the rules and laws, but also they assess their financial health. Are they sound? How's their management? Are their systems effective? What are the risks they face?
How do they actually do this?
It's a mix. There are on-site inspections using frameworks like CAMEL-SC, that stands for Capital Assets Management, Earnings, Liquidity, Systems, Compliance. A thorough checkup.
Like a financial health score.
Kind of. They also do off-site surveillance, analyzing data the banks submit regularly. This helps spot potential problems early. They might do deeper dives, monitor credit exposures, track fraud, handle complaints, and they're digitizing this whole process with an application called SuperSoft.
Sounds rigorous. What actions can NABARD take based on these findings?
They have a board of supervision, BORS, that guides this. They've set trigger points, like if bad loans, NPAs, cross a certain level, that can lead to specific actions. They give suggestions, might issue letters of supervisory concern, recommend improvements, and crucially, they can recommend regulatory actions to the RBI.
So they work closely with the RBI on this.
Absolutely. They coordinate on things like licensing new branches for these banks. The co-ops and RRBs have to send copies of their RBI returns to NABARD too. It's a partnership to keep the rural banking system stable. And importantly, what they find during supervision often feeds back into their developmental work, identifying where institutions need strengthening.
That makes sense. The functions reinforce each other.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have this massive organization with these three core functions. How is it actually structured and governed to handle all this?
Good question. Its structure and governance are key to its effectiveness. The NABARD Act and related regulations provide the basic framework.
And the top body is the board of directors. Who sits on that?
Yes, the board of directors has overall responsibility. It's designed to have broad expertise. There's a chairman appointed by the government, expert directors in fields like rural economics, directors nominated by the RBI, central and state governments, a managing director, and full-time directors appointed by the government after consulting RBI, usually around 13 directors.
A mix of government, RBI, and independent expertise.
That's the idea. And because NABARD issues bonds in the market, it also has to comply with SEBI's listing regulations, the LODR norms.
What does that involve?
Things like rules on board composition, setting up specific committees, transparency, disclosures, standard corporate governance practices for a major market player.
Who's running the show currently?
The chairman is Mr. Shaji KV. He's supported by Deputy Managing Directors Sri Govardhan S. Rawat and Dr. Ajay Kumar Sood, plus the Chief General Managers heading the regional offices and head office departments.
And the board uses committees for detailed work.
Yes, several key ones. An executive committee for day-to-day stuff, audit committee, risk management committee, the board of supervision we mentioned, IT strategy committee, stakeholder relations, and sanctioning committees that approve loans and grants.
Spreading the workload and expertise.
Exactly. And NABARD seems quite focused on enhancing governance. They've put in place things like a formal risk management framework, strong vigilance procedures, an ERP system, an ESG framework, a digital transformation strategy. There's also a central vigilance department ensuring accountability.
Okay, that's the governance. What about the physical structure? How do they cover the whole country?
It's a multi-tiered setup. You have the head office in Mumbai that's for policy, planning, coordination, specialized support.
The nerve center.
Right. Then 31 regional offices, ROs, spread across states and union territories. They implement policy locally, liaise with state governments and RBI, handle funding requests, and oversee the next level down.
Which is?
The district development managers, or DDMs. This is really where NABARD connects at the grassroots. There were about 509 DDMs as of mid-2024.
What do the DDMs do?
They are crucial. They prepare district-level credit plans, PLPs, monitor how credit is flowing, coordinate with district authorities, banks, NGOs, and help implement NABARD's programs on the ground.
That district presence must be vital.
Absolutely essential for tailoring efforts to local realities. NABARD also runs its own training centers, 4 main ones under the BIRD and MBSC names, training their staff, bank staff, government officials. And they have a special cell for Jammu and Kashmir. Total staff is around 3,150 people.
And to handle specific tasks, they've spun off subsidiaries.
Yes, several specialized arms. There's NAB Kisan for lending to agriculture, allied sectors, and FPOs. NAB Samruddhi focuses on the non-farm sector microfinance, MSMEs, housing with an ESG focus.
So dedicated lenders.
Right. NAB Ifline is their NBFC MFI, lending mainly to women's SHGs and JLGs. NAB Foundation is the nonprofit arm for developmental projects. NABCons offers consultancy services.
Consultancy too. Interesting.
Yes. And NAB Ventures manages a venture capital fund investing in agri-tech, food processing, fintech startups relevant to rural areas. Finally, NAB Sanrakshan provides credit guarantee services, like for the Fisheries Fund.
Wow, quite a family of organizations under the NABARD umbrella, each with a specific focus.
Exactly. It allows them to bring specialized expertise and tailored approaches to different parts of the rural economy.
Okay, we've touched on many schemes and funds. Can we quickly recap the major ones across different areas, just to get a feel for the landscape?
Sure. Broadly, you can think infrastructure, farmer credit support, community livelihoods, and climate action.
Right. Infrastructure.
That's RIDF, NITI for direct state funding, the irrigation funds, LTF, MIF, warehousing, WIFF, food processing, FPF, dairy, DIDF, and fisheries, FIDF. Big ticket items.
Farmer and credit support.
The ubiquitous Kisan credit card, KCC, the AgriClinic scheme, ACABC, interest subvention on crop loans, things directly helping farmers manage finances.
Community and livelihoods.
That's the SHG Bank Linkage Program, Watershed, WDF, and Tribal Development, TDF funds, the FPO Promotion Funds, PODF Produce SE, and the UPNRM Natural Resource Management Program.
Building local capacity and resilience.
Precisely. And finally, climate action, their role as the NIE for GCF, AF, NAFCC, channeling climate finance.
It's clear they've strategically created these thematic funds aligned with national priorities. And they often act as more than just a funder, right?
Definitely. They're often the implementing partner or key intermediary for government programs and international collaborations. It's a complex, pivotal role.
Absolutely. So stepping back, NABARD's position in India's development architecture seems truly unique, almost indispensable.
I'd agree. It's not just a financial institution. It's an institution builder, a policy influencer, a catalyst. Its significance goes way beyond the balance sheet numbers.
How so? In terms of sustainable agriculture and rural development?
Well, they actively promote sustainable practices, organic farming, watershed management, climate-resilient crops. They're a massive force behind rural infrastructure creation. RADF and NIDA have funded huge amounts of irrigation potential, miles of rural roads, and they push for economic diversification beyond just farming.
And their impact on financial inclusion?
Massive. Expanding credit reach through refinance, leading the microfinance revolution with SHGs, supporting and strengthening the rural banks, promoting financial literacy. NAFIS showed improvements there, making farmer credit easier via KCC, and importantly, helping reduce reliance on informal moneylenders.
They're also actively working to make the whole rural credit system work better.
Yes, through financial support like refinance and recapitalization help, through institutional development like the PCS computerization, through their supervision function, and by providing policy input. It's about improving the entire delivery mechanism.
Can we quantify the impact? Economically, socially, environmentally?
We can point to indicators.
Economically.
NAFIS shows rising rural incomes. Specific programs like UPNRM tripled participant incomes. RIDF alone is estimated to have generated billions of person days of employment.
Huge job creation.
Yes, socially. SHG empowerment is well documented. NAFIS shows better insurance coverage and financial literacy. TDF has benefited hundreds of thousands of tribal families. Environmentally, their NRM programs have tangible benefits: watershed restoration, agroforestry plantations via TDF, climate adaptation projects, water savings.
So it's really a system-level player addressing market gaps and building knowledge through its surveys and planning exercises.
Exactly. That knowledge-building role through NAFIS, the district PLP's awareness materials, is often underestimated but vital.
And running such a massive operation needs enormous resources. Where does NABARD get its funding?
It's a diversified strategy. A major source, increasingly so, is market borrowings. They issue bonds and debentures. They have top AAA ratings so they can borrow competitively. They've even pioneered things like social bonds in India.
Borrowing from the market. What else?
A very significant and stable source is deposits from banks that miss their priority sector lending targets. These PSL shortfall funds form the core of RIDF and other key funds. It's a huge pool of money.
So turning a regulatory requirement into development capital. Clever.
Very much so. Then, of course, there's their own capital and reserves built up over time, plus capital injections from the government. They also manage specific national rural credit funds, get grants from the GOI for certain schemes like FIF or TDF, and partner with international agencies like KfW or GCF for project funding.
This increasing reliance on market borrowings, does that pose challenges?
It potentially could, yes. Market borrowings generally cost more than, say, RIDF deposits. So it could increase their overall cost of funds, which might eventually impact the rates at which they can lend or refinance. Requires careful management.
And how's their overall financial health looking?
Pretty robust, actually. Their balance sheet has shown strong growth. Profitability is moderate but stable. Crucially, asset quality is exceptionally good play. NPAs are incredibly low.
Why are NPAs so low?
Partly because a large chunk of their lending, like to state governments via RIDF, often comes with government guarantees, reducing risk. Their capital adequacy ratio, CRAR, is also consistently well above regulatory minimums. They are financially very sound.
That financial stability is obviously key. Now, given their wide reach, coordination with other major players must be critical.
Absolutely essential. They have deep, ongoing relationships with the government of India, the RBI, state governments, and the whole network of banks and financial institutions.
Let's start with the government of India.
It's fundamental. They align their strategies with national policies, advise the government, implement numerous GOI schemes, receive capital from the government, and are accountable to Parliament. There's constant interaction, GOI officials on their board, participation in committees.
And the RBI, despite NABARD being government-owned now.
The relationship remains very close. Remember, NABARD was born out of RBI functions. They collaborate closely on supervising the RRBs and co-ops. NABARD inspects, RBI regulates. RBI contributes to some NABARD funds. RBI directors sit on NABARD's board. There's ongoing policy dialogue. It's a strong historical linkage.
What about state governments?
Crucial partners, especially for infrastructure financing like RIDF and NIDA. NABARD's DDMs work with state officials on district credit planning. They collaborate on implementing state-level programs. State government officials are on the NABARD board, and they coordinate with the state registrars of cooperative societies regarding the cooperative banks.
And finally, the banks themselves, commercial, RRBs, co-ops, MFIs.
This is their main operational interface, providing refinance to them, supervising and developing the RRBs and co-ops, partnering on tech initiatives like digital lending or financial inclusion projects, implementing GOI schemes through them, regular consultations, collaborating on international projects that involve local banks. It's a constant, dense network of interactions.
Okay, looking at, say, FY24, FY25, what are the recent developments and future focus areas? Digital seems big.
Huge focus. They're partnering with the RBI's Innovation Hub to integrate eKCC with faster digital lending platforms,
Hmm.
working with others to digitize enrollment for government insurance schemes via RRBs, engaging actively with fintechs and agritechs, investing in some, participating in events.
And the pace as computerization is ongoing.
Yes, pushing hard to get that done by March 2025. Also facilitating SHG sellers onto the ONDC platform for wider market access. Digital is clearly a top priority.
And infrastructure and credit flow, still core.
Absolutely. RIDF and IDA financing continues apace, funding projects across states. They're preparing state-focused papers outlining credit potential for the next couple of years, emphasizing agriculture, MSMEs, FPOs, climate projects, infrastructure. The focus includes reaching tenant farmers better, strengthening the rural banks, boosting MSMEs.
Climate action also remains high on the agenda.
Definitely. Their Climate Strategy 2030 is guiding efforts to scale up green lending, build capacity, explore market mechanisms like carbon markets for agriculture. They continue as the NIE for climate funds, partnering with UNDP on climate data, working with GOA and World Bank on a blended finance facility.
And financial inclusion, institutional development.
Still central. The NAFIS survey results provide fresh data to guide strategy, continued support for SHGs, JLGs, FPOs, ongoing efforts to strengthen RRBs. There's talk of more consolidation, maybe. Good news is RRBs reported record profits recently.
Any other notable recent initiatives?
They launched an AgriSure fund for risk management in agriculture, signed an MOU with the Financial Intelligence Unit for better coordination on financial crime, launched a student internship scheme. So yes, constantly evolving and launching new things.
It's truly impressive. NABARD's role is so incredibly varied: refinancing, direct lending, development, supervision. Its importance as a driver for sustainable, equitable rural development in India just can't be overstated.
Agreed. The sheer scale is one thing, but it's the breadth of impact across farming, infrastructure, financial access, climate resilience that's really striking. It's a foundational institution for rural India's progress.
And as we see NABARD embracing digitalization, focusing more on climate finance, adapting to new challenges, really makes you think about the road ahead. What future opportunities and maybe challenges, too, do you see shaping rural India's development journey? Something for you to ponder as we wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.